Hi, I'm Visweswaraiah as Assistant Professor of English, Government First Aid College, Kunigal, affiliated to Tumkur University. So, in this video or in this presentation, I would like to draw your attention towards Shakespeare's contribution to English literature. This particular session or this video helps the students of English literature who are studying in Tumkur University first semester BA optional English. So why Shakespeare becomes very important in English literature, and what are the features of his work, and why we consider that Shakespeare is a greatest writer in English literature. So in this regards, my presentation focuses on Shakespeare's contribution to English literature. So students, I have prepared some of the slides, so that let us have a look at some of the slides on this topic. Yes, this slide is about the topic Shakespeare's contribution to English literature. This is the topic of this video or the session. Right. So we just see here. This is also So after learning this, or after just viewing this video, students will be able to gain an insight into the age of Shakespeare and his contribution to literature, and also students will be able to understand the themes and techniques of Shakespeare or Shakespearean plays and sonnets. And also after listening to this, students will be able to analyze Shakespeare's works critically, like that. So let us go to the next slide. It says about Shakespeare. In this slide, you will be focused on early years of Shakespeare. So timeline of Shakespeare is 1564 to 1616. Okay. So Shakespeare born on April 23rd, 1564 in Stratford upon Avon in England. So we just see that it's a very famous place because Shakespeare hails from this place. Is the son of prominent town official, and we also see here that Shakespeare is the third child of 8 children to his parents. Okay. Here Shakespeare started his education and received education with heavy focus on grammar and literature as well. So that's very interesting here. See, he started his education to focus on more on grammar and literature. That is important. William Shakespeare had 3 children with his wife. Okay, after his marriage, we just see that 3 children of Shakespeare: Susanna, Hamnet, and Judith. Okay. So yes. So Shakespeare's wife and children, if I want to talk on them, Shakespeare married Anne Hathaway on November 28, 1582. Hathaway was from Shottery, a small village a mile west of Stratford. Shakespeare was 18 and Anne was 26. And as it turns out, pregnant, their first child, a daughter, they named Susanna, was born on May 26th, 1583. 2 years later, on February 2nd, 1585, twins Hamnet and Judith were born. Hamnet later died of unknown causes at the age of 11. Okay, so there are 7 years of Shakespeare's life where no records exist after the birth of his twins in 1585. Scholars call this period the lost years, and there is wide speculation on what he was doing during this period. It is generally believed he arrived in England in the mid to late 1580s and may have found work as a horse attendant at some of London's finer theatres. A scenario updated centuries later by the countless aspiring actors and playwrights in Hollywood and Broadway. And also traced out that by the early 1590s, documents show Shakespeare was a managing partner in the Lord Chamberlain's Men, an acting company in London with which he was connected for most of his career. Considered the most important troupe of its time, the company changed its name to the King's Men following the crowning of King James I in 1603. From all accounts, the King's Men Company was very popular. Records show that Shakespeare had works published and sold as popular literature. Okay, and it is said that the theatre culture in 16th century England was not highly admired by people of high rank. Some of the nobility were good patrons of performing arts and friends of the actors. It is also said that by 1592, there is evidence that Shakespeare earned a living as an actor and a playwright in London, and possibly had several plays produced. Okay, so look at on this slide. Later years, as I told you that he started his career as an actor and playwright, moved to England and became an actor, worked with the Lord Chamberlain's company of players, and as I told you that known as King's Men. Along with acting, he also writes some of the most renowned and studied literature written in English language. Okay, poems famous for his sonnets. He was very famous for his sonnets, and he was famous for plays of comedies, tragedies, and histories. He was written 37 plays and 154 sonnets for his credit. And also traced out that by 1599, Shakespeare and his business partners built their own theatre on the south bank of the Thames River, which they called the Globe Theatre. In 1605, Shakespeare purchased leases of real estate near Stratford for 440 pounds, which doubled in value and earned him 60 pounds a year. This made him an entrepreneur as well as an artist, and scholars believe these investments gave him the time to write his plays uninterrupted. And you can just see some in this slide. Shakespeare's comedies are all's well that ends well, as you like it, the comedy of errors, and the love's labor lost, the Merchant of Venice, the Merry Wives of Windsor, the Midsummer Night's Dream, Much Ado About Nothing, Twelfth Night. And tragedies are Julius Caesar, Hamlet, Macbeth, Othello, Romeo and Juliet, King Lear. Okay. His historical plays are like King Henry V, King John, Richard II, and Richard III. These are the Shakespeare's histories. Okay, and just we move on to the next slide. It says that the main characteristics of Shakespearean tragedies are here we can just say that the writing style of Shakespeare in the early plays were written in the conventional style of the day, with elaborate metaphors and rhetorical phrases that did not always align naturally with the story's plot or characters. However, Shakespeare was very innovative, adapting the traditional style of his own purposes and creating a free flow of words. Okay, we can say that with only small degrees of variation, Shakespeare primarily used a metrical pattern consisting of lines of unrhymed iambic pentameters, blank verse to compose his plays. So at the same time we find that there are passages in all the plays that deviate from this and use forms of poetry or simple prose provided there. Okay, just we see that, look at on the slide. Main characteristics of tragedy is that tragic or fatal flaws will be there, a supernatural element were used there, and internal and external conflict will be there in the place, and fate and fortune also plays very important thing here, and the theme of foul and revenge is a main tragedy of Shakespeare's one. Paradox of life, catharsis, these are the characteristics of Shakespearean tragedy. And here also we observe that Shakespeare in these Shakespeare's characters present vivid impressions of human temperament that are timeless and universal. So that is very important. And possibly the best known of these plays is Hamlet. Okay, Hamlet, very best play considered, which explores betrayal and retribution, insect and moral failure. So these moral failures often drive the twists and turns of Shakespeare's plots and destroying the hero and those he loves. Okay, and we find that Hamlet is a beautiful tragedy play which is prescribed for you in detail. I mean, to study in detail. Okay, that is also important to note in this time. Okay, so next we also see some of the elements of tragedy, Shakespeare's tragedy. Characters become isolated and there is a social breakdown and ends in death. There is a sense that events are inevitable or inescapable, and we see that there is usually a central figure who is noble but with a character flaw which leads them towards their eventual downfall. So these are the main characteristics we just can observe from Shakespearean tragedy. And also we just see that Shakespeare's final period, he wrote several tragic comedies. Among these are Cymbeline and The Winter's Tale and The Tempest. Though graver in tone than the comedies, they are not the dark tragedies of King Lear or Macbeth because they end with reconciliation and forgiveness. So other plays written during this period include All's Well, That Ends Well, Measure for Measure, and Timon of Athens, and Henry VIII. All these, very credits to Shakespeare. And also we can just think about Shakespeare's contribution to English literature or to the theatre or to the poetry is abundant, and Elizabethan era flourished such playwright. And also we can say that here by studying this icon in English literature it gives ways to the students to think about how Shakespearean plays or still now they are very interesting and important. They are universal in style and it applies for all the generations to come. So like this it highlights that Shakespeare plays very important role in English literature. So okay, and also you can just see some of the points to remember, or some of the MCQs are there to focus on. In which town was Shakespeare born? And just go through it and guess the answer. How many children did Shakespeare have? Shakespeare died at the age of dash. Okay. Which river is associated with Shakespeare's birthplace? The Avon, the Thames, the Tyburn, the Severn. Okay. And where is Elsinore in Act 1, Scene 1 of Hamlet? What time of day is it when the play Hamlet starts? Because I know it relates to you. And what is the name of the castle featured in the play Hamlet? Who is the close friend of Hamlet? See, it is to focus on Hamlet play. So reference used for your I used for my reference. So thank you. I hope that this helped you to focus on Shakespeare's contribution to English literature. Thank you very much.